Hi, I'm Joshua, the video editor for Group 2. And so our group includes me, Christina Costa, Mary Ayer, and Anissa Laval Kiemba. And we are proud to present our final group project. So for our final group project, we interviewed a couple by the name of Joe and Pat to assess their attachment styles, love languages, levels of dependency, as well as their adolescent and emergent adulthood. And so Anissa first is going to summarize the results of the attachment scale and love language quizzes. Christine will summarize Joe and Pat's thoughts after taking both quizzes. And Mary finally is going to offer her perspectives, interpretations, and main takeaways from the interview results. So without further ado, here is Anissa with the quiz scores and results.
Hello, my name is Anissa Laval Kiemba and I'm with Group 2. And we went over the adult attachment and love language quiz of Joe and Pat. We found some really interesting information when it comes down to first their adult attachment scale. They had a lot of the same answers, especially when it comes down to closeness. They were basically the same. Joe was at a 2.3 and Pat was at a 2.8. Dependency was 2.8 for Joe, and at Pat it was a 3.5, which shows that he has a lot more dependency or depend on Joe than Joe does on Pat. We also found that their anxiety levels were pretty much the same, 3.3 and for Joe and 3.7 for Pat. When we went down to love language, we started to understand their needs were similar but had a couple of changes in between the two. While Joe needed a lot more touch and words of affirmation, touch at 9 and words of affirmation at 5, Pat needed touch at around 8, which is very similar, and words of affirmation at around 5, basically the same. Whereas quality time, they both had a really high level of necessity in quality time. Joe was at 11 and Pat was at 9. We also went on to review their need for receiving gifts, and that's where it kind of changed between the two of them. Joe was at a 1, which meant that he didn't necessarily need gifts. It was a thank you or a feeling. Whereas Pat was at 5, which is a lot higher in comparison to Joe. And acts of service for both of them was at 4 and 3. Joe at 4 and Pat at 3. Actually, sorry, 2.
When we asked them the 4 questions, Pat felt that for sure he already knew what Joe's love language was, which he assumed was acts of service, just because of the way Joe's personality is. But after finding out that it's quality time and physical touch, he has decided that he'll be more mindful about how he goes about initiating that by giving hugs or kisses. It was interesting when they both kind of said the same question when asked about what mutual positive emotions they both give to each other, and it was more about just being conscious of making sure they get the same days off, and also just really sharing each other's days when they get off of work and just really trying to connect in that way. When asked where their adult attachments stem from, although they scored the same in terms of anxiety, they both had very different experiences in how they got that higher score. Where Patrick felt his father wasn't there for him often as a child, which led him to feel very inadequate in friendships and relationships and scared that people would leave him. Where Joe was, outed by family members, and that really left him feeling vulnerable. And it was very interesting. They both said that they operate interdependently, and they seem like they have very parallel ways of thinking in terms of their attachment styles and just what they bring to the relationship.
All in all, I feel what I got back from this was that there are couples who are very independent. They operate very independently, which I think is very important in any relationship, to also still have that part of independence while you're still working together. So it was nice to learn something different. And I feel every day, in my opinion, every day is a learning process, and people learn and evolve as they grow together and, you know, be couple, whoever. But I do know that people will grow together as time goes on, and there's always something new you have to learn about the other person. So it was really nice reading this discussion and really getting to know Joe and Pat a little better. Thank you. Bye.
So Joe and Pat were a very interesting couple, and of course we want to thank them for giving us the opportunity to interview them and include them as part of our final group project. Also a special thanks to Christine, who was the one who actually interviewed them personally. Hopefully you enjoyed our group project, and thank you so much for watching.